All right, well, welcome. We're so glad you could join us today for this session. This session is part of a larger series offering mental health and suicide prevention information, support, and resources in response to the global pandemic. My name is Kelsey Schmitz, and I work for the University of Washington at the School Mental Health Assessment Research and Training Center, or SMART Center. And I'm the school mental health lead to the Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. Our center is located in Seattle. In response to the critical needs, a group of organizations based in the Northwest region quickly formed an alliance to join together and co-develop, co-deliver, co-sponsor, and co-brand. That's a lot of co's, but the idea is we wanted to reduce the noise and be working together instead of separately to support your professional learning needs. So we are bringing you this content as a group of organizations in an effort to bring together in one spot a wealth of information and access to school mental health experts. So our Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, as well as the University of Washington SMART Center, where our center is located, are partnering with Forefront Suicide Prevention Center, the Association of Washington School Principals, Dr. Jim and Liz Mazza, who created the DBT in Schools curriculum, Northwest Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports Network, Sound Supports LLC, and Educator LLC, to bring you this Wellbeing series, to offer webinars for students, for families, and for educators focusing on mental wellness and suicide prevention. Today's session is part 2 of a 4-part series on educator wellness presented by Dr. Renee Van Norman. She's the owner and founder of Educator LLC. For this webinar, you will all be muted and your videos off for our time together, but you can use the Q&A feature to ask us anything about the webinar, the content, other supports and resources, or any technical problems that you might run into. So you can learn more about the rest of the Wellbeing series that I mentioned in the previous slide by visiting this website and checking out some of the other events that have been planned. If you have any other questions, you can reach out to my colleague, Megan Lucy. The guided notes for this session will be posted in the chat box, as well as the link for the recording. It takes us a couple days to edit and post the recording. You should have also received an email with a link to the guided notes and a link to where the materials will be posted. A post-event email will also go out and contain this same information. The Mental Health Technology Transfer Center network was funded by SAMHSA, which stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services, in late 2018. The MHTTC network includes 10 regional centers, a National American Indian and Alaska Native Center, a National Hispanic and Latino Center, and a network coordinating office. We know many of you are joining us outside of our region, and we want you to know how you can access your regional center. You're always welcome to participate in any of the events that are offered by any center, and you can reach out to your regional center for more support. The Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center supports the school mental health workforce in Alaska, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And this is how you can get in touch with our Region 10 center. This includes our website, our newsletter link, our social media accounts for a variety of ways you can connect with us. We do send out monthly newsletters as well as training and resource blasts, so please sign up to be in the know about what we're offering. And I think we're putting those links in the chat for you as well. Next slide. So before I hand it off to our co-host, I want to tell you quickly about the evaluation. These are required by our funders. It should just take you a couple of minutes to complete, and they are extremely valuable to our team and to our federal funder, so that these kinds of professional learning opportunities can continue to be offered at no cost. We use this information to inform, refine, and enhance our future events and activities. It helps us communicate the need for this support. Your evaluations are voluntary and they're anonymous. And again, we will end the webinar a few minutes early just to give you a couple minutes to fill those out. We really appreciate it. So at this point, I want to hand things off to Dr. Jessica Swain-Bradway, who's the Executive Director of Northwest PBIS Network, and she's going to introduce our speaker for today. Jessica, we are very grateful for your partnership and appreciate you co-hosting this webinar series with us.
Well, thank you so much, Kelsey. I am super excited to be here on this rainy Friday afternoon. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I feel very lucky to have seen many of your names and faces on webinars this week. I'm the Executive Director for Northwest PBIS Network. We are a regional nonprofit, and we collaborate with lots of great groups in the area to provide all of you with high quality training and technical assistance, as well as resources to help you put your PBIS and MTSS frameworks into place sustainably. Not only do we get to work with this amazing group in collaboration recently, we also partner with OSPI, Oregon's Department of Education, the University of Oregon, the Nevada MTSS Project, as well as the California PBIS Coalition. I am very excited, really giggling inside, to introduce a dear friend of mine and colleague, Dr. Renee Van Norman. She is our presenter for today's webinar, Supporting Educator Wellbeing, Wellness Tips to Help You S.O.A.R. Dr. Van Norman is the educator and founder from Educator LLC. She is curious, compassionate, she is tenacious, and she has a passion for supporting her fellow educators and entire school community. She has an expertise in special education, applied behavior analysis, early childhood and teacher preparation. And from her early career in a university setting, she realized that as important as teacher well-being is to our field, there was not a lot of attention being drawn to it at that time. And this really engaged Renee to turn her attention and tenacity to bring educators and folks in the education setting practical evidence-based strategies on how to develop our own well-being skills. Her work is conceptually solid, very practical, and we think you're going to both benefit from and enjoy today's webinar. Thank you for joining us, and I'm going to pass off to Dr. Van Norman.
Thank you, Jessica, for that very kind introduction, and you really know how to fill one's bucket. Welcome, everyone, and I am very inspired by you today for taking the time out of your busy schedules and spending some time on your own well-being. Supporting educator well-being, wellness tips to help you soar. I hope you find some resources today in our time together to help you soar in your well-being. I want to thank our sponsors, the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center Network and Northwest PBIS, for really taking the time out to bring you this series of educator well-being. It's so very important, especially in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to orient you to your materials. You were able to get some guided notes, and guided notes are really a way for you to have an opportunity to interact with the materials of this webinar. You can doodle, you can write questions, you can expand your thinking on a topic. Really take the time to reflect on the material that will be presented to you today. I want to give you an opportunity to take a minute and learn a little bit about Well Educator's core assumptions. Core assumptions can't be proven, but they can give you an opportunity to believe in something and get behind them and really learn a little bit more about Well Educator. All educators are doing the best that they can, and there's always room for growth and development. Nurturing others begins by nurturing oneself. And I wanted you to take that to heart today. Nurturing others begins by nurturing oneself. And that's what today's presentation is built upon. Educators who model empathetic and compassionate nurturing behaviors can help students embrace these skills for themselves. An educator well-being enhanced most effectively through professional development with skills training and coaching and consultation firmly grounded in evidence-based is really what this presentation is built upon. So during our time together today, we're going to learn and practice 3 mindfulness exercises. We're going to identify infinite possibilities for wellness and potential barriers. And we'll identify supports to get unstuck and create lasting change. So I'm going to pop out of the video now so that we can really focus on the content. As with any of my presentations, we're going to get firmly grounded in our right here, right now. So I'd like you to take a moment and reflect on this statement. Right now, I will put aside my thoughts of, by, so I can. I'd like you to take a moment to complete this sentence for yourself. Right now, I will put aside my thoughts of, by, so I can. Let me provide a model for you. Right now, I will put aside the thoughts of a clunky presentation, any anxiety I might be feeling, by taking deep breaths, speaking slowly, thinking these are just thoughts and letting them go by like leaves on a stream, so I can be authentic in my thoughts, words, and actions. So take time to complete that for yourself and just have a very nice, relaxed interaction. We'll be doing several of these reflective activities throughout the presentation. There's even room in your guided notes. You may have noticed in the title of today's presentation was the term well-being, and I think it's important to define our terms. The World Health Organization defines well-being as a state in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with normal stressors of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her own community. What this really boils down to is being effective in one's own environment. What I want to point out to you today is can cope with normal stressors of life. We're not under normal conditions right now. This pandemic is causing much more difficult stressors of life. And it's asking a lot of you educators to change up the way that you've been doing things, to maybe getting in touch with some of the things that you may have valued around education and really questioning things around what it is that got you into the business in the first place. So let's talk a little bit more about some of those stressors that might be typical stressors of an educator versus those that we might be facing today. Daniela Falecki, my mentor in teacher well-being, allowed me to use her infographic that really sums up typical stressors. Some of the typical stressors that educators face are rising in student demands and expectations, vulnerability due to accountability, lack of time in meeting administrative requirements, maybe some ineffective communications with parents. In 1968, Philip Jackson did a study and found that teachers made up to 1,500 decisions a day. I bet you that number is way bigger now with texting and emailing and all the communications that we're asked to do almost 24/7. These are typical stressors of educators. Now let's talk about stressors in COVID-19 with the changes and challenges. Educators are asked about how we teach, how we plan. There's differences now of how we connect with students and families, colleagues and administration, how we're monitoring attendance and how we measure learning. There's differences in how we're connecting. We're asked to do this under different circumstances, under stressors that we've never faced before. We need compassion and self-compassion. These stressors probably make our shoulders rise to our ears, our heart rate gets faster, our breathing is shallow, and it may lead to interactions with our computers that look something like this. I know I had a few of those in preparation for this webinar. So that leads us to our first mindful activity. Because I don't know about you, but talking about all of these stressors led to a little bit of an increased heart rate, a little bit of a tensing of my body, and this picture alone is leading to a little bit of stress. So let's bring us to our first mindful activity, and it's going to be a breathing activity. So for our first mindful breathing activity, we're going to breathe in something that you desire and something that you want right here, right now, in this moment. And breathe out something that is no longer serving you, that you no longer need or desire in your life. For example, breathe in peace and breathe out stress or tension. Breathe in calm and breathe out anxiety or worry. So for about a minute, we will practice breathing in what we desire most and breathing out what is no longer working for us. We will start when I ring my bell, and we will end when I ring the bell. So I'm going to ask you to sit up tall, feet firmly planted on the floor. You may close your eyes if you choose, or just gaze down at the floor or at a spot in the room. It's your choice. You or the children you work with may feel anxious or uncomfortable about closing your eyes. Therefore, eyes closed meditation should always be presented as a choice. Now, take a deep breath in and let it out as you are able. If your mind wanders, just bring it back to your breath. Let's begin. Breathing in something you desire. Breathing out something that is no longer serving you. You may not have known this was going to be an experiential webinar. I hope you were able to take advantage of that time to just take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. If you'd like to reflect in your guided notes what that experience was like, just take a moment and write down what experiences you had in that moment. Today's focus is on individual resilience. You have a well of resilience within you, and we're going to talk about ways to tap into that resilience. I have a message for you. Educators, you've got this. You've got the determination, self-worth, and kindness, and that's what makes you resilient. You're able to cope with adversity and push through challenges in the pursuit of opportunities. While resilience helps us recover from loss and trauma, what you might be feeling right now in the face of this pandemic, it offers much more than that. True resilience fosters well-being, an underlying sense of happiness, love, and peace. What you hope, and I hope, we feel on the other end of this pandemic. And this is from Resilient, How to Grow an Unshakable Core of Calm, Strength, and Happiness, from Rick Hansen. A good friend of mine reminded me the other day when I was in some high emotion, reminded me that if I did something for my mind, body, and being every day, I was having a good day. So that's my gift to you. If you're to do something for your mind, body, and being just once every day, you're having a good day. I'm going to share a lot of tips with you today. And if you can come away with something for your mind, body, and being, just something that you can do for yourself each day, that's a successful day. So that brings us to our title, S.O.A.R. What does that mean? Well, when I was in high intensity emotion and I needed to come up with a way to remember the good things that I was taught over the years, I needed an acronym to help me remember. And so I came up with this one. And we're going to go through each of these for the rest of the webinar. The first is connect to your senses. And I cheated a little bit here, but here we go. Connect to your senses. And I do that through mindfulness. And mindfulness is a buzzword these days, but it really is a way to connect to your senses with full awareness. There's a lot of different definitions of mindfulness out there, and you'll find one that connects to you. This one is from Mark Coleman. And Mark Coleman says that mindfulness is an awareness of our inner and outer experience with an attitude of curiosity and care in order to develop wisdom and understanding. And it was the curiosity that stood out for me in his definition. So let's watch a video by Happify to really understand the superpower that is mindfulness.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you. So I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. with just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
Well, clearly I was having a little bit of an issue with the video there, and I apologies. I do see that there are some Q&A in the box, and I'm going to hold those for a little bit if that's okay. And we'll most likely we'll have time at the end to cover those. I want to keep going and make sure that I get into the additional video that we have time for towards the end. So I'm not ignoring those questions, but I want to make sure that we get to the video towards the end. So as the video talked about, and as we are connecting to our senses, Marsha Linehan, the founder and creator of dialectical behavior therapy, talks about getting into your senses as becoming an observer. And this I think about as becoming an observer as if you're a toddler seeing things for the very first time. She talks about noticing body sensations coming in through your senses. She talks about controlling your attention, but not what you see, and pushing away nothing and clinging to nothing. She talks about practicing wordless watching. So you're not describing what you're seeing. You're not putting words to what you're seeing. You're just using your senses of sight and using your senses, all 5 senses, and just taking in your surroundings and observing both inside and outside of yourself. So what sensations are you feeling within your body, and what are you taking in from the outside? So that's really connecting to your senses. And connecting to your senses during times of heightened anxiety, when you're feeling overwhelmed, those are times that are really important to ground yourself and really become one into your body. So with wonder and curiosity, we're going to move into our second mindfulness exercise. And I'm asking that you participate to the extent that you feel comfortable, and really lean in and participate as you feel that you can. And this is our 5 senses meditation. So we're going to really engage all 5 senses that you are able. And I'll walk you through this meditation just as I did the last one. So for this meditation, we'll be using our 5 senses to the extent to which we are able to connect to the world around us and our body. If you don't have access to a particular sense, then feel free to skip that prompt or repeat a previous prompt. Make it effective for you to the extent that you are willing. Follow along as I guide you through this brief connecting to your senses meditation. Get yourself in a comfortable position, whatever that means for you, either seated or lying down. Take a few deep breaths, maybe in through the nose initially, and then out through the mouth. With each exhalation, allow your body to soften a bit more. Allow your body to settle into its natural rhythm of breathing. First, using your sense of sight, observe 5 things that you can see. Just observe as if observing for the very first time. Engage in wordless watching. Next, 4 things that you can hear. Three things that you can touch. Two things that you can smell. And finally, 1 thing that you can taste. This is an excellent grounding exercise that can really help when things feel like they're spinning out of control. I use it when I'm feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, and feeling like I have no control. It helps to ground myself into the present moment. It's really important that when we're establishing new practices, that we build them into our routine. When we're trying to learn to connect to our senses, especially when we're learning to use them during high intense emotions, that we build them into our routine activities. One way to do this is when we're on breaks, to try the 5 senses meditation. When we're taking a break from work, we can build them into our routine. We can do mindful walking. So when we're walking around and taking our break from just doing our work, taking a walk out in nature, we can use our 5 senses or just pick one. Do wordless walking. How about mindful eating? Be that toddler, tasting those items for the very first time, or brushing our teeth, or tasting our tea. How about playing with a pet, as if we're a toddler doing that for the very first time? This is connecting to our senses and building that into our routines. If we do it while we're doing that in our routines, we're more likely to do it when we're in high stress situations. This brings us to O, open up to possibilities. This is the willingness, even in the face of difficult emotions. We open up to possibilities. We bring those difficult emotions along with us for the ride. Daniela Filecki says, consider all the possibilities today. Forget if the glass is half full or half empty. You are holding the jug doing the pouring. The jug is the world of resources available, ready, and waiting for you to use. What resources will you access today? You have those resources. It may not feel like it sometimes, but you have a well of resources. We have difficult emotions that might get in the way. And we're going to talk about ways to open up to those possibilities and really move past them and take them along with us for the ride. Remember, we talked about doing something for your mind, body, and being. There's infinite possibilities of what we can do for our wellness. Here's just a few. For our mind, we could do a puzzle. We can do a hobby. We can create. For our body, we could go for a walk or a run. These are nothing new for you. Maybe we could do jumping jacks on a commercial break. Some days for the body, maybe just taking a shower is all we can do. For the being, we can open our heart to some self-compassion. We can affirm this too shall pass. And maybe just pulling the covers over our head for a few hours is taking a brief vacation. But you might say to me, Renee, taking care of myself is sometimes the last thing on my to-do list because stress gets in the way. Stress gets in the way of me taking care of myself because I'm busy taking care of others. Remember that assumption that we talked about earlier, nurturing self before we nurture others? It's really important. We can't nurture others if we're not nurturing ourselves. So let's talk a little bit about barriers and opening up to possibilities and willingness. But first, let's talk about another mindfulness activity that we can do when we get overwhelmed and stress gets in the way. And this particular mindfulness activity is called S.O.A.R. And it's a guided meditation that we can use for when we're overwhelmed and we need to take a moment, take a breath, and proceed mindfully. So I'm going to walk us through this guided meditation called S.O.A.R. This S.O.A.R. guided meditation for stress practice comes from Alicia Goldstein from Mindful Magazine. This meditation and additional practices can be found in your guided notes. Follow along to the extent to which you feel comfortable, or just listen and practice on your own when you get to the recording. S is for stop. Stop what you're doing right now and get yourself in a comfortable position, whatever that means for you. Either seated, or it's that time in the webinar where you might be able to just take a seat or lie down. T is for take. Take a few deep breaths, maybe in through the nose initially, and then out through the mouth. With each exhalation, allow your body to soften a bit more. As long as you're here and with the breath right now, allow your body to settle into its natural rhythm of breathing. Breathe in and sense the breath coming in. Breathe out and sense the breath going out. Allow your body to take the breath it needs in its natural rhythm of being alive. O is for observe. Begin to observe your body, noticing if there's any tension or tightness anywhere, including the face. If you do not notice any of that, just allow it to soften, or just mindfully adjust your body as it feels like it needs to. Be aware how you're feeling emotionally right now. If there's a sense of calm or ease, maybe some restlessness or irritation, or maybe even sadness. Or you could be feeling neutral. Whatever's there, see if you can be aware of it and notice how it feels physically in the body. Continue to observe your physically and emotionally in this moment, just letting things be. Be aware of and observe your mind right now, noticing if it seems distracted or cluttered, or if it seems like it's settling into being here, right now. Either way, it's okay. The O of observe is just to allow it to be aware of our experience in the moment, physically, emotionally, and mentally. The moment we notice that our mind is off is a moment we're present. Settle in, be aware of the fullness of your experience, physically, emotionally, and mentally, and just let be. P is for proceed. Proceed is just dropping the question of, what's most important for me to pay attention to right now? Or what am I needing right now? Allow whatever answer there is to simply percolate and arise. Proceed, that is this next moment. Always remember to acknowledge yourself for taking this time. This is a great act of self-care. Take the final moment to acknowledge yourself for taking this time. This is an excellent meditation to use when you begin to feel overwhelmed. When you connect to your senses and feel this tightening of the chest, perhaps some ringing in the ears or shortness of breath, just stop, breathe, observe, then proceed. And when willfulness shows up, when you want to do that self-care activity but stress gets in the way, try this stop meditation and proceed mindfully. So let's talk a little bit about the barriers that get in the way. Well, we definitely know that stress gets in the way of us being effective and getting to take care of ourselves. What about wrestling with comparing and judging mind? Comparing and judging mind are those shoulds that show up. I should be doing this, I should be doing that, instead of taking care of ourselves. And big feelings mind, like shame and sadness and fear, they can all get in the way. And we're going to talk about ways to take those along with us for the ride and still take care of ourselves. And unrealistic expectations from self and others. When we pile on that work and we want to be perfect at it when there is no such thing, that's when we have those unrealistic expectations and we put self-care at the bottom of the list. My hero, Mr. Rogers, knows a little bit something about feelings. And I'm going to read this quote to you because it's so very important and pertinent to opening up to possibilities. There are no should or should not when it comes to having feelings. They're part of who we are, and their origins are beyond our control. When we can believe that, we may find it easier to make constructive choices about what we do with those feelings. He knew a little bit of something about feelings, that's for sure. I'm sure some of you saw this going around on Facebook and Instagram, and I talked to Brandy, and she allowed me to use it in this presentation. And in the face of this pandemic, I think it's right to look at what's in and out of our control. And what's in our control are our actions and our behaviors. And what's out of our control are other people's actions and behaviors. And I was preparing for this presentation, I found a video that really summed up the connecting to our senses and our opening up to possibilities and the rest of the presentation. And I want to share that with you today. And this comes from Dr. Harris's Face COVID. And he really does a nice job of bringing in another acronym. And I'm sorry if this is a faux pas of bringing an acronym within an acronym, but I really wanted to share this with you today because it really amplifies the acronym that I brought in for you today. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope it brings you some resources that you can use as you face this pandemic.
When we face a crisis of any sort, fear and anxiety are inevitable. They are normal, natural responses to any challenging situation infused with danger and uncertainty. Face COVID is a set of practical steps for dealing with such situations. F is for focus on what's in your control. You can't control what happens in the future. You can't control coronavirus itself or the world economy or what other people do, and you can't magically control your thoughts and feelings. Fear, anxiety, and worry are inevitable. But you can control what you do here and now. So let's focus on that. A is for acknowledge your thoughts and feelings. Silently and kindly acknowledge whatever is showing up inside you. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, sensations, urges. With curiosity, notice what's going on in your inner world. You might say to yourself, I am noticing feelings of anxiety, or I'm having thoughts about getting sick, or I'm having feelings of loneliness. And as you continue acknowledging your thoughts and feelings, bring in the next step, which is C, come back into your body. Find your own way of connecting with your physical body. For example, you might try slowly pressing your feet hard into the floor, or slowly pressing your fingertips together, slowly stretching your arms or your neck, or shrugging your shoulders, or slowly breathing. And as you acknowledge your thoughts and feelings and come back into your body, you then move to E, which is for engage in what you're doing. Get a sense of where you are here and now and refocus your attention on the activity at hand. Notice 5 things you can see, 5 things you can hear. Notice what you can touch and taste and smell. Notice what you are doing and give your full attention to that activity. And then C is for committed action. This means effective action guided by your core values. Action you take because it's important to you, even if it brings up difficult thoughts and feelings. Of course, this includes following official guidelines on what to do during this crisis. But in addition, ask yourself regularly, what can I do right now, no matter how small it may be, that improves life for myself or others I live with or people in my community? And whatever the answer is, do it and engage in it fully. O is for opening up. This means making room for difficult feelings and being kind to yourself. As this crisis unfolds, we'll all feel fear, anxiety, anger, sadness, guilt, loneliness, and so on. We can't stop these painful feelings from arising, but we can open up and make room for them. Acknowledge they are normal, allow them to be there even though they hurt, and treat ourselves kindly. Consider what are kind words you can say to yourself and kind things you can do for yourself to help you cope with this suffering. V is for values. Committed action should be guided by your core values. What do you want to stand for in the face of this crisis? What sort of person do you want to be as you go through this? How do you want to treat yourself and others? Your values might include love, respect, humor, patience, courage, honesty, caring, openness, kindness, compassion, or numerous others. Look for ways to sprinkle your values into your day and let them guide and motivate your actions. I is for identify resources. Identify resources for help, assistance, support, and advice. This includes friends, family, neighbors, health professionals, and emergency services. Make sure you know the emergency helpline phone numbers, including those for psychological help if required. D is for disinfect and distance. Remember to disinfect regularly and practice physical distancing for the greater good of your community. Please run through the steps of Face COVID as often as you can for the benefit of yourself, your loved ones, and all the people in your community.
So I included this video because it aligned very nicely with the connecting to your senses, as well as the rest of the presentation today. I'm going to take a pause here and take a look at some of the questions that have popped up. Let's see. How do I access the interactive online journal? I'm not sure which journal that you're referring to. If you give me more information, I can maybe help answer that question. There are resources on the resources in the guided notes. Perhaps that's what you're referring to, Andrea. Julie, any difference between mouth breathing and nose breathing? The way I was taught, and I don't know what the research is behind that, but the way that I was taught is that breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth is very beneficial. So taking a long breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth with a longer exhalation through the mouth is very helpful and does calm the nervous system down more so than just breathing through the nose alone. So I'd have to get back to you on any other research on that exactly, but that is how I was taught and that's what works for me. So breathing in through the nose and a longer exhalation through the mouth is what calms the nervous system down. And there's many different types of breathing techniques out there that you can look up. There's one called 4-square breathing, where you breathe in for the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, breathe out for the count of 4, and hold for the count of 4. So that's helpful. Erin asked, how is the body and being different? Do you separate definitions of these two areas? Actually, I do. How is the body and being different? So you can think of the being as the heart. Some people call it spirit. There's all different ways you can talk about the being. That's how I separate those different definitions. Holly says, thanks, you're welcome. Can you discuss more about how to get through those barriers? Yes, I can, and we're going to get to that next. So we're going to get to that next. Are there any more questions? Okay, we're going to go through the barriers next. So thank you, Nancy. So opening up to possibilities. We talked, and Dr. Harris talked about connecting to your values as one way to bring along some of those negative emotions with you, recognizing them, accepting that they are happening, and moving towards your values and committed action. And so opening up to possibilities is really changing your perspective and really changing the way in which you're talking about things. So changing your language. And we often talk about kicking our butts. So rather than saying, I can do this, but I can't do this, we talk about and. So we get curious and we say, is it possible that I can be overwhelmed and also interact with loving kindness because that is what I value? So we add that language of and. Is it possible that I can squeeze in 2 minutes of deep breathing and grade papers for 10 minutes because maybe 10 minutes is all I can do right now, and also feel overworked and underappreciated? So we're adding that language change and perspective change that can change our way of talking about it. I am curious if, so getting curious. I use a guided meditation app 2 times per week before I go to bed if it will have an impact on my sleep. Again, not setting ourselves up for success, having an app 2 times per week, not saying that we're going to use it the entire week, but maybe just try it out for 2 times. We're opening up to possibilities, we're becoming willing, we're using an and instead of the but or our excuses or whatever you want to talk about, as a way that we're moving towards what we value, as Dr. Harris talked about. So we talked about those barriers, and Nancy asked about ways to get unstuck. Mindfulness and meditation, connecting to your senses. That's one way to get unstuck, because we are overwhelmed with our emotions. Dr. Harris also talked about that 5 senses meditation of a way to get unstuck, to really get into the grounded moment, into the present moment. Changing our perspectives, getting into the fact that what is in and out of our own control, getting placed to acceptance of we do have difficult thoughts and feelings, and we can place those on a cloud and watch those float away. We can place those difficult thoughts and feelings on a stream and let those pass by. Those are mindfulness activities that we can use. There's plenty of apps and like Insight Timer or Headspace that are free. They're all in your guided notes. Access to those are great ways to get unstuck using mindfulness activities. Believe it or not, physical activity, just getting movement going to get unstuck from those barriers of, I don't want to do it. If I get up and get motivated and moving a little bit of my body, I may get into the motion of getting started. And that is a way of taking care of my body. Coping ahead, a way of sitting down and imagining what would it look like if I actually got started. Sitting down and imagining what would it look like if I did something for my body today, and imagining what that outcome would look like. And just by sitting there and imagining in your imagination what the outcome would look like for yourself is a way to get yourself started on the road to success. Doing a pro-con list, so getting out a piece of paper and writing down what would it look like if I did take care of myself, and what are the cons of not taking care of myself, and really just taking a moment to put those things down on paper. And then writing mini goals. Sometimes we think that we're going to run a marathon, and what we really need to do is just take a quick walk. And on that walk, maybe we add the 5 senses meditation, so that we're doing, we're getting more bang for our buck that way. So this is an opportunity to get unstuck from some of those barriers. It's difficult, and I recognize that, but there are times when we can change our language and change the way in which we approach things to get unstuck and take those difficult feelings and those difficult emotions with us for the ride. They're not going away, and we need to accept some of the difficult emotions and do some of the mindfulness activities so that we can just support ourselves. And through all of this is definitely self-compassion, right? You don't want to do this with a heavy hand. That brings us to arrange your environment. And this is where you support yourself in doing the things that you value and that you, as Dr. Harris talked about, you have committed action to do. I don't know about you, but when I feel cluttered on the inside, I need to clear clutter on the outside, and that will help me feel a little bit better on the inside. So I arrange my environment to help me arrange the environment that I want on the inside. I can put up reminders around the house of things that I do value and things that I do want to do. So if I want to do something for my mind and I want to start journaling, maybe I put up a reminder about writing down one thing in my journal that I wanted to put in the journal. Maybe I'm not writing paragraphs and paragraphs. Maybe it's just one sentence. Maybe it's something like, what was my happiest moment for that day? Or what is one gratitude for the day? I ask for help. I need an accountability partner. I ask friends for help. We really need to take the shame out of asking for help. Set up materials ahead of time. I know for myself, when I can set up my materials in a way that makes it easier in the morning to get started on any kind of activity, whether it be something for my mind, body, or being, whether I put out my sneakers right in front of the door so that I know that I'm going for a walk in the morning, that will be setting up the materials ahead of time so that I don't have to think about it. They're just there and I'm ready to go. Putting up motivators and inspirational signs that remind me that I'm arranging my environment to support me in doing something for my own well-being. Especially during these times when I'm so stressed out, I need more of these motivators and inspirational signs and inspirational messages for myself. Arranging your environment for support. So going on our examples from earlier, I'll put up reminders in my workspace of kind words and encouraging statements to remind me I can interact with kindness when I'm overwhelmed, because that is what I value. I'll use the alarm on my phone to remind me to do 2 minutes of deep breathing and 10 minutes of grading, because that's all I can handle. And I'll use my favorite song as the ringtone to pair it with something pleasant. Or I'll download a free app like Insight Timer or Headspace and listen to the guided meditation 2 times per week and see if I sleep better. Remember before I was talking about getting curious? This is a great time to get curious about how you can arrange your environment to support you in setting up your workspace or your area in your home to support you in supporting your own well-being. Whatever it is, you'll need to find your own flow. The ideas that I share with you may not work for you. The ideas that work for your friend may not work for you. It's important to find your own flow and how to arrange your environment to support your own well-being. That comes to reinforce. Whatever you need to do to put around your house to reinforce that you're doing a good job, that you're doing the right thing, no matter what you're doing for your mind, body, and being every day, is good enough for you. So some ideas. You want to celebrate the small successes. You want to remember your passions. It may be very difficult right now because you're teaching in a different way, but remembering why you got into this business in the first place and remembering why you are doing what you're doing for your students and for your own well-being is very important. Dr. Harris talked about getting in touch with your values. Now's a good time to take a look at that. And that's a great place to start in a journal. That's a great place to start in having conversations with your colleagues. Connect with others and share your successes. Don't hold them back. Talk to each other. Talk about how you're being successful and what it is you're doing. And it's those small successes. Again, it's not the big things. It's not the big outcomes. It's the small successes. Write out gratitude lists and share them with others. I'm sure you've heard some of these things. The research is bearing out that the magic is in sharing those gratitude lists with others. So text a friend at the end of the day 3 things that you're grateful for, and maybe they'll share back 3 things they're grateful for. Spread kindness. The research is showing that sending out kindness to others has the same effect as getting kindness spread back to you. And of course, in this time of unprecedented time of stress and in this pandemic, practice self-compassion. So just as a review, we want to connect to our senses, open to possibilities, arrange your environment, and reinforce. And before I go over the review, I'm going to see if there are some more questions here. Jeffrey Sprague. There is also a method called box breathing, Foursquare, and appreciate Renee's answer as well. I've also been taught to find the place where your breath is most salient and focus on that. Yep, we talked about Foursquare breathing, box breathing. Yep. Thank you, Jeffrey. And mouth breathing seems aggressive and nose breathing seems to be deep and use the belly. Yep, absolutely, Lonnie. That is important. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So in review, we learned and practiced 3 mindfulness exercises. We did some breathing exercise. We did the 5 senses exercise. We also did the stop guided meditation. We identified some possibilities for wellness for your mind, body, and being, and some potential barriers. We identified some supports to get unstuck and how to arrange your environment and reinforce to create lasting change. So now's the time to set an intention for you to soar with your well-being. So we'll take a moment to reflect and see if any more questions come in. But go ahead and take time to reflect in your guided notes and write an intention for your own well-being. It's good to be as intentional as possible of what it is that you will do based on the content of this webinar, or just what you might do for your mind, body, and being in the next few days to support yourself in your self-care during this difficult time. The more specific you are, the more likely you are to follow through. Okay, I'll bring you some resources. Hopefully you were able to come up with an intention for some well-being and some activities that you can do to support your mind, body, and being over the next week or so. Some resources that are in your packet are links to a 3-minute de-stressor for teachers, a self-compassion break for adults. I've included a PDF for progressive muscle relaxation and other relaxation exercises for times of stress. And when you find your body is in a anxious state, those relaxation exercises can be very helpful. Insight Timer is an app, and that's also a link to their website. Insight Timer provides over 1,000 guided meditations, as well as a timer for silent meditation with some music if you chose. Headspace is an app. It's free for K-12 educators. They also had a link that was for COVID-19 resources on their website that I included. And I included a number of other resources in your guided notes, including the free mindfulness resources for Calm during COVID outbreak for the Mindful magazine. That includes the stop meditation that we did today. Here's a list of books that were used in today's presentation. Also found in your resource guide and guided notes. And my mentor, Daniela Filecki, has an excellent course that she has that's free. If you sign up for her newsletter, she sends out 5 well-being resources, and she also has several other resources available online, chat box cards, wellness cards, and she just came out with a new teacher well-being journal that is available through her website. And then the YouTube video links that we watched today and the World Health Organization's definition of well-being. This is Well Educator's way today to tell you today is a great day to be amazing and that you are amazing. And I want to thank you for everything that you're doing for families and children and students in our educational system. And it's with much gratitude that I am here with you today. If you have any questions, you can reach me at renee@welleducator.com or check me out on my website. I think I'll turn it over to Kelsey now to see if she had anything to add.
No, I just want to say thank you very much, Renee. I hadn't thought about this when we scheduled this webinar, but what a gift for you to offer this on a Friday afternoon, as hopefully most of us are able to go pretty quickly into the weekend. I know it was a huge benefit for me to kind of decompress from the week and move into the weekend. So huge thanks to you again. I want to remind people that we've got 2 more of these sessions coming up with Renee, and Megan's going to put that in the chat box. 2 more educator wellness webinars. Again, they're all recorded and posted in the link that Megan shared. And also this is part of our larger well-being series. We just added a series for school leaders. We just added a series on grief during COVID. All these things are free and you're all welcome to join us.